Malcolm Douglas, filmmaker and adventurer, lives with crocodiles in the far north of Western Australia, in the small coastal town of Broome. Malcolm has over 4,000 crocodiles, and he spent the past 30 years learning about these ancient reptiles. Crocodiles are large meat-eating predators, disliked and misunderstood. Malcolm works hard to change this attitude and to ensure the survival of this amazing creature. Malcolm Douglas, living with crocodiles, is a 12-month record of his extraordinary lifestyle dealing with one of the world's most dangerous animals. It's December, the beginning of the wet season in Australia's north. Malcolm Douglas spends long periods in the bush hunting rogue crocodiles. With the coming of the monsoons, he's anxious to pack up and head back to his crocodile park in Broome. The first spectacular storms usually bring little or no rain, and after months of intense heat, the country's parched and dry. Out at sea, a monsoonal low develops into a cyclone, and by the time Malcolm arrives home, rain and gale-force winds are battering the coast. In the weeks preceding the downpour, the crocodiles have been mating, sensing the change in atmospheric pressure and the increase in humidity. During the wet season, a female lays around 50 eggs. In the wild, they would incubate in warm, moist soil. But to ensure a good survival rate on the farm, the eggs are taken from the nest and placed in an incubator. Collecting crocodile eggs has been described as the most dangerous job in the world. A female defends her nest ferociously, and at times the larger male can be even more dangerous.
Come on, move on.
It's impossible to get to the eggs until the crocs back off.
Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Hey. Come on. Out of the way. Come on. Go on.
Crocodiles tire quickly due to a rapid buildup of lactic acid in the bloodstream. But in a few minutes, they regain the energy to attack again. Collectors must have an understanding of crocodile behaviour and nerves of steel. Eggs are handled carefully. If an egg is turned or jolted, the embryo will die. Muddy, a 4.5 metre male, is very protective of his female, so he has to be distracted. While the croc attacks the plastic float, Malcolm's able to enter the pen. Muddy's female has constructed a small nest, but over 40 eggs are packed inside. The eggs have to be removed soon after they're laid. If the nest temperature exceeds 35 degrees, the embryos will die. This is one of the causes of the high mortality in the wild. When an egg's about 24 hours old, an opaque band begins to circle the shell, showing that it's fertile. It will be hours before Muddy lets the float go.
Come on, get up. Come on. Come on.
Chook, another big breeding male, is very cunning, and Malcolm has to make sure he knows exactly where the crocodile is before venturing into the pen.
Go on. Hey.
Bundy's a cattle dog and instinctively tries to round up the crocs. When Malcolm enters the pen, Chook charges again. Eggs are collected early in the morning, and Malcolm checks the nests before the general public are admitted. No one enters the pens at any time during a tour. While Malcolm's removing the eggs, Chook lunges, but he's pacified with a scratch on the skull. The most dangerous and aggressive of all is Terror.
Right on, mate. Come on. Come on.
Terror was taken from the Ord after sinking his teeth into the stern of an aluminium dinghy used to ferry burr cutters across the river. He has to be kept well away from the nest. Terror gives the styrene float a hard time while the eggs are collected. Females normally retreat after an initial burst of aggression. The rag allows Crookjaw to attack for several minutes until she tires.
Come on.
A female protecting her nest could rush forward and grab an egg collector. So she must be pushed back into the water. By the time she's regained her energy, the eggs will have been collected. 3 months later, with the arrival of the cooler, dry season weather, the female will abandon the nest, unaware that the eggs have been taken.
Righto.
The eggs are checked for damage and washed to make it easier to see the banding that proves fertility. Any unbanded eggs will be discarded within a week. To stop them rolling and to maintain a constant temperature, they're laid out in trays of vermiculite. Detailed records are kept of each clutch. Inside the incubator, the climate's carefully controlled. A constant 32 degrees Celsius and 99% humidity produces male crocodiles. At 31 or 33 degrees Celsius, females develop. The progress of each clutch of eggs is checked regularly. At 32 degrees, they'll hatch in 80 days. A steady flow of warm bore water maintains humidity. In Broome, the nesting season runs from November to February. A female scratches up a dirt and leaf litter mound and excavates a deep egg chamber. As soon as laying commences, Malcolm's able to approach the female, even though she's normally exceptionally dangerous.
When these females are laying, they go into a trance. So you can literally come up to them like this very quietly and take the eggs out as she's laying them. Beautiful egg. She's going to lay about 40 to 50 eggs. By tomorrow morning, she'll be charging the fence and she'll guard this nest for around about 80 days. But at the moment, I can literally remove the eggs one by one, just like that. She's finished laying now. She goes through this very laborious task of using the left foot and the right foot and slowly covering the eggs over. This will go on for another hour, then she'll go back into the water and recover. The next morning, oh gee, we've just got to watch out when we come in to collect these eggs.
The next day, Malcolm demonstrates just how fiercely protective nesting females can be.
How are you, little girl?
About 48 hours after laying, the eggs are checked. The embryo absorbs water from the inside of the membrane, and the shell dehydrates in a distinct band. This indicates that the embryo is alive. A healthy, fertile breeding pair should produce a full clutch of viable eggs. A call has just come in from One Arm Point, a remote Aboriginal community 250 kilometres north from Broome. During the wet season, it's an 8-hour drive. One of the men has speared a crocodile and it's tethered in his backyard.
Come on, you take me around where the crocodile is, eh?
The children know Malcolm well and direct him to the house where the croc is tied securely to a tree.
Where's the crocodile? Just gently. Go too fast. Where's this crocodile? No. He can't hurt.
These are Bardi Aborigines, coastal people who hate crocodiles, so the children rarely see them alive. They're wary of the croc, and when it lunges unexpectedly, they scatter. After that bit of action, there are no volunteers to help with the loading.
Grab its tail. Left side. Too heavy for it.
A few minutes is spent talking about crocodiles. Then it's off to Broome. Children from smaller communities along the way revel in the mud. The wet season will soon be over, and these Kimberley tracks will be dry, rough and dusty for the rest of the year. "80 days after the first female nested, there's movement in the incubator, and the tray of eggs is transferred to a heated shed.
Now this is the most exciting time on a crocodile farm. We've gone into the incubator late at night to check it, and we can hear them calling out at exactly 80 days from when the eggs were laid. The little noses pop through the shell. Once the first one starts calling out, starts vocalising, it triggers all the others to hatch at the same time. What we do is we help the little hatchlings out of the egg, because sometimes they can get the nose through, but then they become exhausted and they might die in the shell. And the interesting thing about it is that as they come out of the egg, like there's two here now, look, they're actually fighting, and quite often they'll bite us. See, oh, he's got me now, see that? It hurts too. So, come on, there's four of them here, they're having a blue. Come on. Look at that. Straight out of the egg, he's already attacking his brother or sister. Probably his brother, because they'll hatched out at 32 degrees.
Eggs incubated at 31 or 33 degrees will produce females. In the wild, barely 1% of the hatchlings live more than a few years, but on a well-managed farm, 90% survive. Crocodile farming worldwide is now an important industry, producing high-quality leather and low-cholesterol meat. A viable industry ensures the survival of this key species. The bigger, stronger and more aggressive the hatchling, the faster it will grow. The hatchling breaks through the tough inner membrane and the shell using a minute tooth on top of its upper jaw. This egg tooth soon drops off. The bulge in the abdomen is a residue of yolk, the baby's food supply for the first 2 weeks, while it learns to hunt. As the yolk's absorbed, the skin along the belly closes over. On a farm, the babies are fed a specially prepared diet of minced meat, calcium and vitamin supplements. Malcolm's often called out to capture troublesome rogue crocodiles, and today he's heading for Ludgata on the shores of King Sound. 5 hours later, he's yarning with his mate Laurie Cox. 2 dogs have recently been taken where the children play on the beach, and Laurie wants the culprits caught before one of the children is attacked. The little ones love the water too, but it's dangerous down on the shore, and alternative arrangements have to be made. At high tide, the children and their dogs romp in the surf. When the nor'easters blow, crocodiles usually shelter in the calm waters of a nearby creek, and it's relatively safe. But Malcolm knows that overnight the winds will drop. Sun up the following morning. It's glassy calm, a perfect opportunity to launch the boat. The trap's made in 2 sections to carry on the pack rack. It's assembled on the beach and lashed to the boat. Bundy travels everywhere with Malcolm. It's unbearably hot and humid, with reports of a cyclonic build-up. There are several creeks and rivers nearby, and the trap's set in the widest, where Laurie's family recently saw a big croc when they were out fishing.
It's all set up now, but before we leave a trap, I always just do one test, just to make sure that the pin's right. I'll just pull the pin, just as if the crocodile's grabbing the bait now. Simple. Reset it and come back in a couple of days.
It's time to check a trap set at another popular fishing spot.
Now that's what you call luck. There's a crocodile in that trap. We've had 10.5 metre tide, big current, logs banging against the trap, and that trap has flipped over after that croc has gone in there. And the gate is jammed, so the gate hasn't dropped out. It's jammed in there now. So even though it's rolled over in the big tides, it's still caught a crocodile. It's pretty amazing. So I'll pull it in now and have a look at him. I've got to pull this in very slowly, because if that croc jars the trap, we might lose the gate. The gate's actually sticking on the bottom now. I'm going to have to walk down and get a bit of rope on that gate before it falls. Okay, down, settle down. He's a pretty old croc. He's not very big and he's in very poor shape. He's got no condition on him, no fat around the neck. So he's potentially very dangerous because he's very hungry. So it's just a matter now of getting a rope around that top jaw, tying him up into the vehicle, back to the croc farm. Steady, boy. Steady, steady, steady.
The most critical part of the operation is securing the top jaw. After the initial burst of energy, a croc normally rests to get its second wind. With the top jaw immobilised, it's a relatively simple procedure to control the bottom jaw. This croc has large teeth compared with the size of its head, so Malcolm calls him Big Tooth. Malcolm makes it back to Broome just as another cyclonic low hits town. When the weather eases, he returns to Ludgeta to find that his traps have been rolled over by the huge tides and rough seas.
See, one of the problems here, we're dealing with one of the biggest rises and falls of tide anywhere in the world. Today we've got 10.5 metre rise of fall of tide, and this water is running in and out here at around about 12 knots, say around about 15 kilometres an hour. So we'll come back next Saturday when we have 4 or 5 days of what we call neap tides, when it's not such a big rush of water, and hopefully we'll catch this croc.
His other trap too has been overturned. This whole expedition has been a total disaster, and it'll be quite a job retrieving all the gear. He heads along the Ludgeta beach to check another trap in a small estuary. More disappointment. The recent cyclone has pushed it out of the creek and high up the beach. And judging by the damage to the metal frame, the seas were huge. The hunt for the rogues has taken many months. Malcolm has another go, this time placing the traps high on the banks on the biggest tides. He's hoping that the crocs will smell the bait and swim into the traps as the tide surges over the mud flats. "48 hours later, Malcolm's back.
Hey, we've got a croc after 9 months mucking around in his river system. The people back at Ludgeta will be very pleased. He's not the biggest croc I've ever seen, but he's a mature animal. He's about 12 foot. Good croc. I'll just go and have a look at him. You stay put. Stay. Oh, he's a typical King Sound croc. He's old, but he's not big. This is one of these crocs I've been trying to catch since last Christmas. It is now June. After we put these traps up here on the mud, we didn't have the trouble of them rolling over. All we've got to do now is get a heap of guys back from Broome here, pull that trap down, take him back to Broome. That's going to take us about 2 days, but I'm very, very pleased.
It's off to Broome to pick up a few mates who are keen to get some hands-on work with crocodiles. Travelling overnight, the men arrive back at Ludgeta just on sunup to catch the rising tide. 30 minutes later, they're out at the trap.
The croc still looks pretty happy, well, considering his circumstances. The little bit of bleeding on the nose from yesterday is already healed up, so we don't have to worry about that. That's fine. That's just superficial, where he was knocking himself yesterday a little bit, and that's great. What we have to do now is get the rope trap positioned in front of the metal trap, tie the croc up and pull him out of the metal trap into the rope trap, and that's always a tricky part.
Even a small mature croc is surprisingly heavy, so you need a willing team.
Don't pull any more. Going well. Going well. Righto, take this way, man. We've got it. Well done. Again, lift and pull. That's it, beautiful. One more like that. Lift and pull, lift and pull. Going to get another one for you next week. I'll get the lot. And you didn't even swear that time.
The cooler, dry season is the time for travelling, when Malcolm can have a break from the farm and check crocodile numbers along the Kimberley coast. One morning, while they're waiting for the tide to rise, an inquisitive crocodile turns up. Malcolm's always interested in their behaviour, especially in the wild, and he watches its reaction to splashing that stimulates the movement of a wounded animal or fish. The croc's fearless behaviour clearly demonstrates how careful people must be in crocodile country. Most fatal attacks occur when people are swimming and the croc's excited by the vibrations in the water. Bundy's upset. She senses the danger nearby. Along the way, Malcolm catches up with an old mate, Vic Cox.
Get over. How things, Vic? Hey, all right. Long time no see.
Yeah, been a while, mate, been a while.
Oh,
Where have you been?
I've been everywhere, as usual, yeah. Checking out a few crocodiles. What are you up to these days?
Not very much, just poking around.
Really retired now.
Yeah, really retired, mate. Really retired.
Vic and his daughter Sandy have lived on their yacht for years. Vic travelled with Malcolm on a pearling lugger back in 1971. Both men have an intense interest in crocodiles and yarn about them for hours. Vic's been concerned for some time that crocodiles are still being killed in this remote region. He worked for BHP when they mined iron ore here, so he knows the country well. Now he's a beachcomber. Vic spends his days plying the Kimberley coast and collecting dead shells that he finds on the reef at low tide. Sandy worries about her dad and says she'll stay with him until he's too old to live on board. Malcolm wants to check a river near an Aboriginal community, so with goodbyes all round, he heads for the tidal creeks of King Sound. A day later, he settles the boat on the mud to wait for sundown.
When we have to chase a croc, I always like to have a good look at the river well before dark. We've come up this river system here, and the tide's gone out. We've just settled the boat down for the afternoon, had a feed, and now I'm just getting the harpoon ready. As soon as it's dark, we'll go spotlighting, of course, and to catch these smaller crocs, I use the bamboo harpoon. Now, on the end of the harpoon, I have this metal section. It's a 3-pronged spear. It goes in the end. It's very humane because they're only very small barbs and they're very short. So I usually aim for the fat on the back of the neck here, and once I've hit the animal, the metal section pulls out and he charges off. See, the sandflies are bad here. Whew. He charges off and we play him back to the boat, and occasionally he gets very angry, attacks the boat. That's when we lasso his top jaw and pull him into the boat. Very dangerous stuff, but very exciting. And of course, for nighttime stuff, we have to change our hats because I don't want the crocodile to see me. There we are in the tropics, and I've got my beanie on, just waiting for the sun to go down.
It's now past midnight. The tide's rising and the hunt's on. It takes practice to place a harpoon in the right spot from the bow of a moving boat. As it tires, the croc's eased slowly to the surface. Too much tension on the cord would pull the harpoon out.
Righto, he's coming up now. Up him.
With patience and skill, the croc's lassoed with a top jaw rope. Very little restriction is needed to secure a croc's jaws. All the power is in the crushing bite.
The scent gland's working here, see? Let it go out, let it go.
A stressed crocodile has a rapid build-up of lactic acid in its blood. This exhausts the animal, and it must rest until the blood regains its normal pH level. During this period, a crocodile can be handled with care. Malcolm's always anxious to find out the sex of a captured croc. He needs mature females for his breeding program in Broome. When the harpoon's pulled out, the wound's barely noticeable.
Well, I'm a very happy man. That's a lovely female. This is what you call a problem animal because it was in close to one of the Aboriginal communities. It's probably not big enough to be life-threatening at this point, but in a year or two, and especially if it was breeding, it would be very dangerous. And fortunately for me, it's a female, so I can go back to the farm in Broome and probably live very happily for about another 40 or 50 years. This tape on the back legs, I'll take that off in a minute. I'll tie her all up and she'll be fine. What a beautiful animal.
The men spotlight all through the night. Wherever there's mullet, there's usually a croc looking for a feed. If the harpoon's driven into the fatty tissue around the neck, it causes little damage to the animal. This crocodile is exceptionally aggressive, attacking the boat several times. Crocodiles have new teeth ready to replace any lost or damaged. And within a week or two, it'll have a perfect set of teeth again.
Come on, we're both pretty knocked up. Just have a little bit of a breather. Come on, have a little bit of a breather. Calm down.
And a rare sight in this part of the Kimberley, a saltwater hatchling.
This is a really good sight to see up in the Kimberleys because we don't have a lot of hatchlings surviving. When the females lay their eggs up here, usually gets too hot, so the eggs cook in the nest, and if they don't cook at the nest gets flooded. This is about 4 or 5 months old. It's not in bad shape. It's nothing like the crocs, of course, that we grow back at Broome, but it's got a beautiful skin pattern on it, very fine. Lovely little animal. A young fella back in the water. There you go, he's off.
Just after the release of the hatchling, a large croc surfaces near the stern, and it's very interested in the boat. It's too big to harpoon safely, so Malcolm and his mates sit tight, trying not to agitate the big male. It was probably attracted by the distress calls of the hatchling. This time, it does not attack. But for Malcolm, it's another reminder of just how careful you must be around crocodiles. A vivid pink dawn breaks without a breath of wind, and the boat skims over the cloud reflections on the way back to Broome.